In 2007, this company controlled half the mobile phones on Earth. Executives inside it saw the iPhone coming, and they still lost everything. This is how the world's most dominant tech giant collapsed in less than a decade. Nokia didn't start as a phone company. It began in 1865 as a Finnish pulp mill on the banks of the Nokian River, producing paper. Over the next century, it merged with a rubber manufacturer and a cable company, becoming a strange industrial conglomerate that made everything from rubber boots to electrical cables to television sets. By the 1980s, Nokia was a sprawling, unfocused Finnish company with no clear identity. But inside its electronics division, a small team was experimenting with something new: mobile radio telephones. In 1982, Nokia launched the Senator, one of the first car phones in the world. It was heavy, expensive, and niche. Nobody at the company yet realized that this side project, mobile communication, would eventually swallow every other business Nokia owned and turn a Finnish paper mill into a global technology empire. In 1992, Nokia made a decision that would define the next 15 years. It sold off its paper, rubber, and television divisions to focus entirely on telecommunications. The new CEO, Jorma Ollila, bet the entire company on mobile phones, a market that barely existed yet. It was a massive gamble. Mobile phones in the early 90s were luxury items for executives, not consumer products. But Ollila saw something others didn't. Digital networks like GSM were about to make phones smaller, cheaper, and universal. Nokia poured resources into engineering and design simultaneously, treating phones not just as electronics, but as personal objects people would carry every day. In 1994, the Nokia 2110 became the first phone to use the now iconic Nokia ringtone. It was a small detail, but it signaled a company that understood something rivals didn't yet. Phones were about to become deeply personal. By the late 1990s, Nokia wasn't just competing, it was dominating. In 1998, it overtook Motorola to become the world's largest mobile phone manufacturer, a position it would hold for the next 13 years. Then in 2000, Nokia released the 3310. It became one of the best-selling phones in history, with over 126 million units sold. Famous for its nearly indestructible build and the game Snake, the 3310 turned into a cultural icon, spawning internet memes decades later about its supposed ability to survive anything. Nokia phones during this era felt genuinely different: reliable hardware, long battery life, and a menu system that just worked. By 2007, Nokia held roughly 50% of the global mobile phone market. It was selling more phones than its next four competitors combined. From the outside, Nokia looked unstoppable. On January 9, 2007, Steve Jobs walked onto a stage in San Francisco and unveiled the iPhone. Inside Nokia's headquarters in Espoo, Finland, engineers reportedly weren't alarmed. They'd seen touchscreen prototypes before, and Nokia's own research division had actually explored similar concepts years earlier. But Nokia's leadership made a critical misjudgment. They viewed the iPhone as an expensive niche gadget, not a mainstream competitor, because it lacked a physical keyboard and a replaceable battery, and it was tied to a single carrier. Nokia's internal culture, built around hardware efficiency and rapid model turnover, wasn't built to compete with a company thinking of the phone as a computer running full software. Nokia kept releasing incremental updates to Symbian, its aging operating system. Meanwhile, Apple, and soon Google's Android, were rebuilding the entire concept of what a smartphone was for. Nokia's operating system, Symbian, was the real problem. It had been designed years earlier for basic phones, and adapting it for touchscreens and app ecosystems proved disastrous. Symbian was fragmented across multiple phone models, making development slow and inconsistent. App developers found it frustratingly difficult to build for, especially compared to Apple's clean iOS platform or Google's rapidly improving Android. Nokia executives were reportedly warned internally in leaked memos that the company was falling behind. The phrase "burning platform" would later become famous. Nokia kept shipping millions of Symbian phones, and for a while, raw sales numbers masked the danger. But underneath the numbers, Nokia's smartphone software was becoming a relic. Developers were abandoning it for iOS and Android, and consumers who bought smartphones increasingly wanted the app stores and interfaces those platforms offered. Features Symbian simply couldn't match. In February 2011, new CEO Stephen Alop sent an internal memo that leaked to the press, comparing Nokia to a man standing on a burning oil platform, forced to jump into freezing water just to survive. It was a stunning public admission of crisis from inside the world's largest phone maker. Days later, Alop announced a radical pivot. Nokia would abandon Symbian entirely and adopt Microsoft's Windows Phone as its primary smartphone platform. The partnership gave Nokia access to modern software, but it came at a cost. Critics argued Nokia had jumped from one sinking platform onto another underdog, since Windows Phone had almost no market share and few apps. The announcement also had an immediate side effect. Consumers and even Nokia's own sales partners lost confidence in Symbian phones overnight, causing sales of Nokia's existing lineup to collapse even before the Windows phones arrived. Nokia's Lumia series, launched in late 2011, was genuinely well-engineered. Sleek polycarbonate bodies, excellent cameras, and tight integration with Windows Phone. Critics often praised the hardware, but it entered a market already locked into two ecosystems. Developers weren't building apps for a third platform with shrinking relevance, and consumers were hesitant to buy phones with limited app stores. Despite aggressive marketing and genuinely innovative devices like the camera-focused Lumia 1020, Nokia's smartphone market share kept sliding. Between 2007 and 2013, Nokia's global mobile market share fell from roughly 50% to under 5%. The company that once outproduced its four closest rivals combined was now struggling to remain relevant at all. Nokia's stock price, which had traded above €40 in 2007, had fallen below €2 by 2012, a collapse of over 90% in 5 years. In September 2013, Microsoft announced it would acquire Nokia's mobile phone business for approximately €5.4 billion. For a company that once defined an entire industry, it was a quiet, almost anticlimactic ending. Stephen Alop, the CEO who had orchestrated the Windows Phone pivot, returned to Microsoft as part of the deal, a detail that fueled years of speculation about whether the partnership had been designed from the start to benefit Microsoft rather than save Nokia. The Windows Phone platform itself never gained meaningful traction and was effectively discontinued a few years later. Nokia, stripped of its phone business, retreated back into telecom network infrastructure, the unglamorous but profitable business of building the equipment that powers cellular networks worldwide. The Nokia brand name would later be licensed out to other manufacturers, appearing on phones the original company no longer designed or built. Nokia's fall wasn't caused by a lack of talent, money, or even foresight. The company had touchscreen prototypes and internal warnings years before its collapse. It fell because a hardware-first culture couldn't adapt fast enough to a software-first world. Success itself became the trap. Nokia optimized relentlessly for what had made it dominant, while competitors rewrote the rules of the entire industry. Today, Nokia survives as a telecom equipment company, quietly powering 5G networks behind the scenes rather than sitting in people's pockets. Its rise and fall remains one of the most studied case histories in business schools worldwide. Proof that even the most dominant company on Earth can be dismantled in less than a decade, not by a weaker rival, but by refusing to imagine a fundamentally different future. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest business collapses in history. And let me know in the comments which company's downfall you want covered next.